Knowing truth, whether it's about the gospel of Jesus Christ or Constitution or conservative, isn't going to save you. Only listening to the promptings of conscience will. I'm here to tell you that the horrendous problem that's going to come in World War III, and this COVID thing is going to keep you occupied and dodging things until it comes, and it's going to blindside you. You're not going to see it coming. But it's going to be horrendous. It's going to start with a nuclear preemptive strike against U.S. military bases and missile forces because of PDD 60. Presidential Decision Directive 60, which was signed in 1997 by President Bill Clinton, completely revamped our nuclear posture from the Reagan doctrine, which was to launch on warning and prepare to win a nuclear war, to absorbing a nuclear first strike and then retaliate afterwards. And General Butch Neal of the Marine Corps said, retaliate with what? If you absorb a nuclear first strike, all of our military bases are gone, all our missile bases are gone. And Bill Clinton in that same year, 1997, made a promise to the Russians to keep 50% of our ballistic missile submarines in port at any one time. There's 2 ports, Kings Bay, Georgia, and Bangor, Washington, in the Seattle area, so that they could be more easily targeted as a gesture of goodwill that we aren't a threat to Russia. Just suicidal. Now, PDD 60 is still in force. 2 weeks ago in the World Affairs Brief, I talked to several disarmament lobbyists, like Arms Control Today, which to this day on their website, November 1997, you can still read about PDD 60. And so I called up Arms Control Today, or I emailed, and I said, do you have any information? Because I was responding actually to an article by Bruce Barnes, of a disarmament guy who helped, write PDD 60, and he was talking about the need to do further disarmament and stop the U.S. from launching on warning. And I said, wait a minute, it already is stopped through PDD 60, and yet here's a guy in Arms Control Today, 1997 has been a long way away, and he apparently had no clue that it was still in force. So I called him up and I said, are you aware of any nuclear doctrine that has replaced PDD 60, the one that dictates that our missile forces shall absorb a nuclear first strike? And he said he was not, but sent me over to the Federation of American Scientists, a far-left anti-nuclear organization, and I asked him, and he never responded. But it's interesting, they're all talking about Biden doing a new nuclear power deal and revising things, and that's why I wanted to know if they knew that PDD 60. But here's what I think happened. No, they have purposely let everyone forget about PDD 60. They have not briefed our military generals at all about PDD 60. General Mike Flynn, who's a conservative, said, there's not going to be any nuclear war. All the briefings that we receive indicate that it would result in mutual assured destruction. Mad. No, that's not true. You see, that proves that he was never told that PDD 60 is going to require that our missile forces absorb the nuclear first strike. And then there's no way hardly to retaliate afterwards. So this is a very serious situation, but this war is going to be preceded by an EMP strike. Only Russia and China have the ability to throw an EMP strike because it takes at least 2 or 3 super EMP weapons, and it takes about 8 or 9 regular EMP weapons. These are exploded at high altitudes so that it gives out a radiation, electromagnetic radiation that hits the power lines, and it sends a huge 1,000-volt surge down the power lines, hits your panel, and then fries everything connected to the internet. Fries it all. And it's most dangerous when you have long power cords and long, because they act as an antenna. It's still, the jury is out on how much cars will be damaged. The government tests show that in a 300-mile circle directly under each explosion is where the maximum radiation is that may disable cars. Outside of that, your cars may shut down but will restart, hopefully. But in any case, it's not enough for you to listen to what I'm saying and say, gee, that's going to be horrible. I need you to picture how horrible that it's going to be. I need you to picture why you've really got to be in shape, because without any electricity, there'll be massive pillaging and refugee flows out of every major city, because the food will be gone within 3 days. And if you're living in the major, even in Utah, you may think that Mormons are prepared, but they're not very prepared. Most Mormons have no more storage than probably 3 months in their pantry. Some Mormons have a full year's supply. But unfortunately, they've shared that information with a lot of their neighbors, and they're going to be beset with neighbors asking to share. And I'll tell you, if you start sharing, once there's full famine, you'll all be starving within a week. There's no way to share with thousands of people in your neighborhood and come out with anything left. And so that is why you need to do several things to prepare against this war. Now, the war will not take down major cities with nuclear explosions, except places like Hill Air Force Base in the Ogden area. Probably be an air burst over Hill. And the reason Hill's a primary target is because that's where they've got the guidance systems of the MX missiles. They're stored at Hill. And the missile bodies are out on the West Desert. They'll be hit as well. So if the wind's blowing from the northwest, you're going to get massive amount of fallout down into Salt Lake, and it'll even reach into Utah County. If the wind's from the south, as it is often here, it'll go further north, etc. But you can't count on it. You need to have some kind of fallout shelter. It's very important. Now, if you're within a 10-mile radius of Hill Air Force Base, you would need blast protection. But that's really silly. It costs 3 times as much to have blast protection in an underground shelter than it does to have fallout protection. And so it's important that you simply move and relocate if you're within that area of Hill Air Force Base. That's the cheapest way to do it. And most people don't understand the threat, so you can sell your house, okay. But the other important thing is that there'll be famine for at least a year, because the United States does not stockpile any of the transformers that transform the high thousands of volts of electricity in the intercontinental transmission lines down to usable energy. We don't stockpile. They're made in China. We maybe have 2 or 3 in the entire nation out of hundreds that are necessary. So don't count on the electricity coming back very often. You need to have ability to produce your own electricity. You need to have a fallout shelter in case fallout comes, because even if it comes, the wind's blowing the other way from Hill Air Force Base, it's a south wind, you're going to get it from San Diego or Nellis Air Force Base or Area 51 in Las Vegas. So everyone needs to have a fallout shelter. That's very, very important. And additionally, as you know, there has become a great deal of animosity between people over this COVID thing. You've probably experienced in church. People getting hostile to you if you're not willing to wear a mask, which I have never been willing to.